Hi Katrine. So here is your breathing video. Before I jump in, I'd just like to say I really appreciate this morning. I learned a lot and it was really lovely just to chat to you. I feel like we share a lot of common knowledge, and the way in which you were able to question me and also bounce ideas, and I found it really informative, and yeah, it was really wonderful seeing you work with patients as well, so thank you so much for that. um, so um, let's dive into some breathing. Now, I'll explain to you a little bit about why I find this so useful, then I'll take you through some exercises, and we may do some that are a little bit less conventional too, just because, yeah, you said you don't really do them, so why not start with a little bit of something new. So the reason why I find them so useful is first and foremost the autonomic regulation. So when we breathe in, there is a reflex that occurs via the vagus nerve and the phrenic nerve that communicates with the brainstem's respiratory center, that increases the heart rate. Because we get a decrease in the pressure of the within the thoracic cavity with the in-breath, that's what draws the air in. There is also a drawing in of venous blood to that cavity, and an increase in the amount of blood that is shunted into the right atrium. So it needs to increase heart rate in order to facilitate the clearing of that increase in that return, the venous return, and to also ensure that you get good oxygen exchange while the lung is full of oxygen, and also carbon dioxide exchange as well. So when you breathe in, you activate the sympathetics, and it lift the vagal suppression on the heart. Yeah, indeed. So you inhibit the vagus nerve's action on reducing the heart rate. And when you breathe out, exactly the opposite happens. Your vagus nerve is allowed to reduce the heart rate, and this is happening with every breath. And you probably know all this already, of course. I'm explaining physiology to a physio, but yeah, that's what gives the heart rate variability. So what that means is that if you want to bring yourself into a parasympathetic state, if you spend about 6 to 8 seconds breathing out, or at least 2 to 3 seconds longer breathing out than you do breathing in, and you do that for about 10 breaths, you can reduce your heart rate over time. And especially if you combine that with active relaxation, which is consciously turning off one's own muscles, allowing muscles to switch off, like my shoulders right now, I feel like they're kind of dropping, letting go of tension, then you can really switch somebody into a parasympathetic state, and the brain receives information of safety when we're in that state, because when you're relaxed, it's very, unless you're in complete shutdown, like playing dead state, as long as you're awake and relaxed, the brain goes, well, we must be safe because we're not protecting against anything, nothing's causing us to be in tension. But that autonomic regulation also means that we can do the opposite, and we can increase sympathetic activity at the same time as increasing oxygen saturation in the blood. So we can do that by just spending much more time breathing in than we do breathing out. So that would be like this, for example. And here you get a combined effect of that automatic reflex of putting suppression on that vagus nerve, and increasing the heart rate via the venous return and the autonomic feedback. But you also, on the conscious forcing of the air out, contract a lot of muscles, especially the intercostals, abdominal muscles, shoulder muscles. And that requires energy, that requires blood supply, and so switches on the sympathetics in order to do that. And so if you're ever cold, do that 10 times. You may be a little bit lightheaded, but I guarantee you'll also be warmer. And I find it extremely useful when exercising. So if I'm going to do some press-ups or doing something that requires strength work, if I focus on that kind of breath before I do the reps and then during the reps as well, I find I can do a significant amount more reps than if I'm just breathing normally and I haven't like activated my sympathetics and saturated my blood with oxygen prior to exercising. So that's autonomic regulation and how I think about it. Also with people with panic and fear, if you can do the kind of in-breath, fast out breath consciously, because it mimics the kind of breath that they do often when they're having a panic attack or under fear, but you're doing it in a way that is to activate the system consciously, you can change the association with that kind of feeling of being a quick breath with tension, and you can then give them control over their own breathing processes, which often in a fear state are just happening and changing their physiology without them being able to be in control of it so much. So I also find that quite useful, just to gradually expose people to that who are scared. So number 2 is carbon dioxide. And reading the book Breath by James Nestor, he talks about the Buteyko breathing, which is developed in Russia for the SAS. You probably have heard of it before. And the idea is basically that if we can increase our tolerance for carbon dioxide in our bloodstream, then because it's the carbon dioxide levels that give us that feeling of air hunger. For example, if you're swimming underwater for a while and need to come up for air, that feeling is because you're increasing carbon dioxide saturation. Then what you can do is you can increase the capacity for saturating the blood with oxygen, because if there's higher concentration of carbon dioxide in your blood at baseline, you've got a bigger concentration gradient for the oxygen to then be shunted through when you do actually then breathe. And with this kind of method, there is a synchrony that happens if you're breathing 6 times a minute, which actually isn't that slow, but there is a synchrony that happens with your heart and your respiratory rate. So they seem to be able to come into the optimum balance at 6 breaths a minute. At least that's what the research seems to say. So that kind of requires an ability to tolerate a higher concentration of carbon dioxide, which you can train by just breathing less and breathing slower. And if you're doing that over time, not while you're exercising, or if you are, then you can actually increase your performance and output. And the nice thing about that is that when you get past a certain threshold of carbon dioxide, it also releases nitrous oxide into the blood, which is a vasodilator. So you can reduce inflammation by increasing the nitrous oxide release, and you can also promote vasodilation in the peripheries and throughout the entire body by breathing less. So that was the first exercise that I was going to do with you today, breathing less and then breathing to activate the sympathetics, and then breathing to calm down, shifting into parasympathetic. So to start, I'd like you to take a baseline reading of your heart rate. So just get an idea of how fast your heart is beating. Time it if you want to be accurate. And then taking a deep breath in and breathing out. Seeing if you can try and concentrate on relaxing the muscles as you do so, and then just hold your lungs empty and wait for the air hunger to appear. And if you like, you can time it, because the time between breathing out and the air hunger is a good indication of your ability to tolerate CO2. And then when you get it, you breathe until you feel nourished by it, until you feel like it's filled your cup back up. And you repeat, breathing out, holding. feeling that air hunger. And a nice additional exercise with this one is just to allow the body to dictate how deep the breath is and when to breathe. So it's almost like with your conscious attention, you just step away and become the observer, recognizing that the body is able to breathe for itself. For example, if you pass out, you don't stop breathing. Your body automatically regulates that. So you just see if you can step back from controlling it. And really focusing on the feeling of nourishing that you get, almost like a pleasurable, like satisfying a thirst sensation when you bring that oxygen back into the system. Okay, now let's saturate your blood with oxygen. You might get a little bit lightheaded, a little bit of tingling might happen because the blood becomes more alkaline when you do this. And that causes the nerves just to, for some reason it causes them to activate. I don't quite understand that physiology, but you do get a little bit of pins and needles, a bit lightheaded. So don't do this while driving or in the bath, and preferably while sitting down as well. So we're going to do a breath in that is 6 seconds, and then a breath out that's like a push and 1 or 2 seconds. And we're going to do it 10 times. And you really want to try and start from the belly and raise the breath right up into the throat. So you're lifting the shoulders to get that maximum inhale. And this will activate more of the scalenes and start to release some of the neck tension that often people hold when they're in this kind of position. Elevate those top 2 ribs. Really push the air, contract the muscles. Last one. Good. Notice how you feel. Measure your heart rate. Mine's definitely increased. I'm feeling pretty lightheaded right now. I notice that I'm flushed as well. Blood's definitely circulating more. Okay, so once your lightheadedness has calmed down, shifting you back into parasympathetic. So this is the slow out breath, and it really helps a lot if you can pause a little bit at the end of the out breath and actively relax as you're breathing out. So breathing in, extending that out breath, 6 seconds. Relaxing. Breathing in. Extending the out breath. Relaxing. Pause. 6, if I'm right. Kind of lost count a few ago, so if I'm wrong, don't judge me. If you're finding it hard to relax, sometimes it's quite good to actually increase tension in the shoulders on the in-breath as you're bringing the air in. So elevate in the middle. And then releasing from a point of tension as you breathe out. Focusing on that feeling of release. Last one. And check your heart rate. Now mine's returned to baseline. It hasn't actually slowed from the original rate that I did at first. But if you start from just resting, then you can actually reduce it more than that. But we're trying to reduce it from a state of being up, so a little bit harder to reduce it completely. But I definitely feel slower, I definitely feel more relaxed, I definitely feel different after that second one. So there is my beginning introduction to the breathing. I hope you enjoyed it.